China taking a harder line on new trade talks with the U.S., saying it doesn't know of any plans for negotiations. We've been talking about the futures this morning. Dow down 124 in the pre-market. We've got Riley Walters, a policy analyst for Asia Economy and Technology at Heritage. And you know, is this just the Chinese again trying to put tough language out there? Has something really changed in China, do you think?
You know, I don't really think much has changed, certainly since the beginning and even now. Whether it's Chinese officials or the media, they want to show that China's not being bullied by the United States.
All right, but some of the rhetoric that we've heard, in particular from one of the foreign ministry spokespeople saying that, or excuse me, the foreign minister, saying we know nothing about any talks. They're basically pushing back on Mnuchin's comments, which markets, the stock market liked here in this country. He's pushing back saying, yeah, we don't have anything on the books. And that's a little rough.
Yeah, I mean, right now we do have a meeting that is planned, right? It's going to be between the presidents at the G20 in Japan at the end of June.
But Mnuchin said that they were going to go back to Beijing.
It's still possible. I mean, they certainly can. There's a month and a half, and really these things, you know, the way that we've seen it over the past year, these things can move very quickly. So they can decide, you know, this week that they've decided for meetings next week, you know.
Well, I want to, you know, this China's People's Daily, obviously this is, of course, the government paper, basically with the language saying that you know, they're not going to back down. And it's kind of almost war rhetoric. I mean, we haven't really seen the Chinese kind of push back against us really since the Korean War, Riley.
You know, it's expected. I mean, we've had this sort of rhetoric, I think, for the past couple of years. I mean, even we continue today ourselves to call it a trade war when really it's not really about trade at all. You know, it's about technology, it's about theft. The thing is that trade has just happened to be caught in the middle of all of this.
Well, speaking of trade, you know, we're expecting to get a delay on the auto tariffs decision from the president. Maybe give it a few months because we've got to work with the EU, we've got to work with Japan. But I want to ask you about Theresa May, Prime Minister of the UK. She basically is saying they're going to use Huawei technology. Mike Pompeo was over in Europe telling our allies don't use Huawei technology, and they've kind of rebuked us. What do you make of that?
I mean, this is a problem that we're going to have not just with our friends and allies, but in all countries. I mean, Huawei is able to provide very cheap technology, whether it's actually, you know, secure technology. I think there's a lot of debate about this, and certainly there are a lot of concerns the U.S. has. But you know, this is the issue. It's not just getting our friends to not use Huawei; it's getting others to not use it as well, because American businesses operate in all these environments
and operate on those other networks around the world. I mean, we have to have our phone no matter where we are these days. Riley, it's an interesting week with China and the U.S. Thanks for being here and getting up early. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.